Hello there, welcome to today's video. If you're new here, my name is Brenda and I do all sorts of knitting related content on this channel, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite summer knitting patterns, aka my 2024 summer knitting plans, even though I might not be able to make all of these, but some of them, and I just thought I'd share them with you. Now I know it may seem a bit early to start talking about summer knitting patterns, but the reason I decided to do this right now is because those tops that I'm going to show you, or summer tops in general, are usually knitted on very tiny needles, let's say 4mm at best, so they take quite a while to work up, and in order to be able to wear your cute little tops as soon as it gets warm, you should probably start sometime soon. I'd like to mention one thing before we get started. If you're active a lot on Instagram and Ravelry, you're probably familiar with some of these patterns, but I also try to include some patterns that I believe deserve more attention than they got. So we have a pretty good mix, I would say, of some more popular patterns, but also some patterns from smaller designers that are a bit less known. And I will also share some free patterns with you at the end of the video. Starting off with some pretty popular knitting patterns, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Petite Knit, aka the mother of knitting. I'm kidding, no one calls her that. If you don't know her, then what the hell are you doing? Okay, jokes aside, Petite Knit is the #1 knitting account on Instagram. I would say she's definitely the most popular one, and meanwhile she should have over 1 million followers, which is crazy. But yeah, her knitting patterns are very popular, to say the least. I don't know why I thought I would have to introduce her, but anyway. I just checked and I actually have knitted 10 patterns from Petite Knit, or more like 9.5, because I failed the Moby sweater miserably, but I'm not gonna give up on that sweater, okay? I will knit this thing, and if it's the last thing that I do. But let's get to the summer knitting patterns, because that's what you're actually here for. I have to say I haven't knitted any of Petite Knit's summer top patterns yet, but I'm planning on doing so this summer. We're literally starting out with what seems to be the most plain, and you could even say most boring, out of all the patterns I'm gonna show you today, but please stick with me. It's the Kumulus Tee. I know, she is a bit basic. I just think you could style this in so many cute ways. You could add some cute jewelry, maybe some statement necklace, a cute little silk scarf, or you could even spice it up a little bit by adding some stripes when knitting it, or knitting it up in a speckled or hand-dyed yarn. The possibilities are endless. If I were to make this, which I probably will, I would most likely use the suggested yarn, which is Pure Silk by Knitting for Olive. I've had my eyes on this yarn for a pretty long time now. It just seems really lovely, and I've seen so many knitters use this yarn on Instagram. It has a pretty good yardage. It's 250 meters per 50 grams. So depending on your size, you will need around 200 to 300 grams of this yarn in total. The pattern includes 7 sizes, and the bust circumference of the garment goes from 89 centimeters to 134 centimeters. I'm sorry, I'm just reading off my laptop. It is worked in stockinette stitch, and the edges are worked in I-cord. The needles you'll need for this pattern are 3mm and 2.5mm. I said it, those knitting patterns are no joke. Another yarn that is recommended for this pattern is Tynline by Sandnes Garn, and I haven't used this yarn before myself, but some of my friends have, and they absolutely love it, so I might give it a try at some time. That one consists of 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen, which seems to be a very lovely mix for the summer, and they also do have a great color selection. My preferred yarn would still probably be the Pure Silk by Knitting for Olive, just because, as I said, I've been wanting to try this for a very long time now. Also, I really adore Knitting for Olive's color selection. It is huge, it's insane, and they're all gorgeous. And I honestly don't even know which one I would pick, but they're all beautiful. Anyway, let's move on. The only other Petite Knit pattern I'm going to talk about in this video is the June top by Petite Knit. There are two versions of this top. There's the regular one, and then there's also the June top light. The only difference here is that one is worked on 2.5mm needles and the other one is worked on 4mm. Patterns contain 7 sizes, and the bust circumference of the garments range from 80 to 124 centimeters and 79 to 123 centimeters for the light version. The recommended yarn is again pure silk by Knitting for Olive for the light version, and for the regular version it's the same yarn but held double. I included this pattern here because I like that it's again a little bit more basic. It's very basic, let's be honest, but I just think you could elevate this a lot by styling it the way you like. I also appreciate the fact that the straps are pretty wide, at least they seem to be wide enough to cover bra straps, I think, but I haven't knitted the pattern myself yet, so I can't really say a lot about that. What I also really like about this pattern, which kind of makes me question what I just said about hiding the bra straps, but it's the deep neckline in the back. I just think it's a nice detail that adds a little bit of femininity to an otherwise pretty basic and plain top. Also, I just checked in the pattern description it says that the neckline the back neckline is deeper, but only so deep that it still covers the bra. But it still looks pretty deep to me. I guess I'll have to knit it and find out myself. The main reason why I included this pattern in here though is because I have seen a few people on Instagram knitting it up in Noro Kakigori, which I kind of fell in love with. I think it looks beautiful, especially in that yarn. So I'm not 100% sure whether I'll make this top for myself this summer, but I still felt like including it here because it, in my opinion at least, seems to be a pretty versatile top and some of you might like it. Moving on, we have another bigger designer, I would say, Myfavouritethings.knitwear, aka Louise. She's one of my personal favorite designers. I just feel like most of her patterns really resonate with my personal style, and I also really enjoy the way she writes up her patterns a lot. In comparison to her patterns, I believe that Petite Knit's patterns can be a little bit too much sometimes in terms of text and all the things she includes in her patterns, which, don't get me wrong, is great for beginners, I think. But I just feel like Petite Knit's patterns can be a little bit all over the place, if you know what I mean. I just prefer Louise's patterns. I also checked again and I own 11 patterns from her, so it's a close race between her and Petite Knit, but I still have to say I prefer her patterns over Petite Knit's. I currently have the Camisole No.9 by her on my needles, and I also talked about this a bit in my previous video, so I'm gonna keep this one short. Oh god, this one's also plain stockinette. They're not all this minimalistic, I promise. The thing that caught my eye with this pattern is, and that may sound a little bit silly, but it was the fit of it. I know the fit is not going to be the same on me as it's on Louise, but I've seen so many other people knitting this up and it looked honestly damn good on everybody, so I'm gonna give it a go and hopefully the fit will be just as good on me. So I have said this before already, but for the sake of completion, I am knitting this in Sottile by Lana Grossa in this very bold green. This is shade number 11 and the yarn consists of 85% cotton and 15% merino, which makes the yarn overall feel less cottony, which is amazing. Pattern includes 8 sizes and starts at a bust circumference of 69 centimeters and goes up to 114 centimeters. It is worked on 3mm needles and the suggested yarn is the regular Knitting for Olive merino yarn, which I absolutely love Knitting for Olive and all of their yarns, but I could not get myself to knit a summer top in merino yarn. It just doesn't really make sense to me, even though I recently learned that merino wool is not only a very breathable yarn, but it's also temperature regulating, which is super cool. That basically means it will keep you cool in the summer and warm in the winter, and that's really cool, but I still couldn't get myself to knit this up in a merino yarn. I don't know, I just still wouldn't choose it for a summer top, but I've seen other people do that and they're they love it. So I don't know, you decide for yourself. I just feel like a cotton yarn makes more sense for me personally. Another camisole that I really like from Myfavouritethings.knitwear is the Camisole No.7. Yes, now the not so basic patterns will follow. This lovely camisole, even though it may look a bit intricate at first glance, is actually worked in a pretty simple broken rib stitch. I absolutely love the shaping of this camisole. It has a pretty feminine silhouette with accentuations on the center and also on the sides. These are created by working increases and decreases, so it really couldn't be more simple than that. The pattern comes in 6 sizes and the bust circumference ranges from 77 to 116 centimeters, and it is worked on 3mm needles. The suggested yarn is Saphira from Pasquale, but I'm actually gonna use another yarn that she lists also as an alternative, which is Mercy by Phil Colana, mainly because I already have that in my stash. That one is 50% Pima cotton and 50% superwash merino, which I find to be a very interesting blend. I have worked with this yarn last year already in the summer, and I just find it to be a very lovely yarn. I like the stitch definition and the way it works up. I had planned on releasing a summer top, but then another designer released a summer top that looked too similar to mine, so I decided not to publish it because there's just no need for 2 patterns that look pretty much the same. Yeah, that's fine. Things like that happen. I'm happy to use this yarn for the camisole. Moving on to some smaller designers. One of my all-time favorite designs is the Luna Tee by Charissa, or cl.knits on Instagram. I just love this design so much. She's stunning, gorgeous, beautiful. She's everything, okay? I honestly think Charissa, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name the correct way, but I honestly think she's such an underrated and such a talented designer. And I will link her patterns, and by the way, I will link every pattern I'm talking about in this video down below. Yes, I just think she creates the most beautiful garments. And let me tell you some details about the pattern. It comes in a juicy 14 sizes. Yes, 14, you heard right. The finished garment's bust circumference ranges from 71 to 153 centimeters. That is insane. There's just so much work that went into this. It's amazing. The pattern suggests merino yarn, and again, I haven't done that, but to be fair, in the pattern description she wrote that this is intended to be a top for the fall wardrobe, so I can totally see why you would use merino for that then. Nevertheless, I have knitted this in the Landlust Sommerseide by Lana Grossa, which is a beautiful silk and cotton blend. I believe it's 50% silk and 50% cotton. Yes, and I knitted it in shade number 34. And I really enjoyed wearing it, which is why I'm including it here. I don't know whether I'll knit this one this year again, but I will surely re-knit it sometime in the future. I would just love to own this in multiple colors. I just think it's a lovely piece that's not too basic. It's just one of those pieces that you could wear to literally any occasion, and you wouldn't be underdressed and you wouldn't be overdressed, I feel like, if that makes any sense. I loved pairing it with a longer skirt, and I also loved wearing it with my linen pants in the summer. That was just very lovely. Moving on, let me tell you, I don't think it gets any more summery than this. James & Watts designed this super cool mesh shirt that is knitted top down with raglan increases. It's the Look at My Holds top. It's worked on 3.5 and 5.5mm needles. The pattern includes 9 sizes and the circumference ranges from 76 to 157.5 centimeters. The pattern suggests knitting this with plant-based fibers, and James used a 60% cotton and 40% linen blend, which sounds fantastic to me. Also, you really don't need a lot of yarn for this. Again, depending on your size, it will be something from 253 meters to 524 meters. Now, this is obviously more of a statement piece, something to have fun with, something to show off that you are interested in fashion, not necessarily something super practical for a 9-to-5 job. I guess that depends on your job, but you get what I'm saying. Nonetheless, I still think it's a really cool pattern that you could style with maybe a smaller top underneath and have the Look at My Holds top be more of an accessory and be that little something that spices up your outfit a little bit. Or you could totally wear this to the beach. That would also be really cool. All right, I have 2 more things to talk about before we get to the free knitting patterns. Also, please let me know in the comments what you're planning on making this summer or for the summer. I would absolutely love to know that. Next is the square neck camisole by Helene Beba. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, I'm so sorry. I watched Florence, aka Handmade by Florence on YouTube, talk about this top in one of her knitting podcasts, and I instantly fell in love with it. After that, I went on Instagram and checked the hashtag square neck camisole, and I knew there was no going back. It just looked super flattering on everybody, and now I'm convinced I need this in my wardrobe. It is worked in 3x3 rib on 3mm needles, and it includes 6 sizes, which correspond to a bust circumference of 72 to 104 centimeters. The designer again suggests merino by Knitting for Olive, and that's also what Florence used. And honestly, I think this may have convinced me to use merino yarn for the first time for a knitting pattern for the summer. I might do it. I don't know, I just think it looks really good with this specific design, so we'll see. Before we get to the free patterns, I have to show you something that doesn't really fit into the concept of this video, but it's so beautiful, I have to show you. This is honestly more of a knitting podcast type of thing, but I don't care. Look at this beautiful yarn! I'm not sure if this yarn is new or if it's just like newly available in Germany or whatever, but I haven't seen this before. It is Kompeito by Noro Yarns. I've seen this at the store and I just had to get it. It's beautiful. It's a lovely 35% silk, 35% cotton, and 30% polyamide blend, and it's intended for 3.5 to 4mm needles. Also, the yardage is amazing. It's 150 grams and it runs 450 meters. I have to knit something with this for the summer. I have no idea what I'll make with this yet, but I need something with this in my wardrobe. I got this yarn on my last trip visiting Nuremberg, and there is a beautiful yarn store that I just love visiting. The main reason for that is because they have lots of Noro yarns. So I haven't really decided what to make with this yarn yet. I'll probably just make a top-down raglan t-shirt kind of thing with it, and maybe include some lace, or maybe I'll make it in plain stockinette. I still have to figure that out. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments. Now, let me share some free knitting patterns with you. A quick disclaimer before we start. I have not knitted any of these patterns. I have included them here because I either think they're really cute or I've seen other people on Instagram knit them and they looked really good. So the first one is the very lovely Canary Belle top by Drops Design. It is a lace pattern, baby doll-esque top. I say baby doll because it just kind of gives me the vibe of those baby doll dresses, if you know what I mean. Like it kind of flares out at the top and just gets wider towards the bottom, and I just think that creates a really cute shape. It also seems pretty airy and flowy, which honestly, what else would you want in the summer? Also important to mention, the pattern is worked from the top down, which is amazing. I'm a huge fan of top down patterns. It's literally the only thing I knit. I just think it's great that you can adjust the length of your tops to fit you best. But I also do know the struggles that come with knitting summer tops from the top to the bottom, because it can be kind of hard to estimate the right length for your straps when they start there, and so that can be really a bummer when you knit an entire top and you realize, oh, the straps are growing with wearing the top, and that's just not nice. And it's not always super easy to fix the length afterwards, so I do get that. So a pro tip from me would be to always knit the straps a little bit shorter than the length you want them to have when you're actually wearing it, and just wear the top a couple of times, maybe around the house. So the length of the straps just kind of adjusts. By the way, all of the patterns I've mentioned so far are worked from the top down. I don't think I mentioned that already. Anyway, the pattern includes 5 sizes, and they even included this little sketch with all of the measurements. But be careful, in this case, it is the width of the top, not the circumference that is shown. That might seem a little bit obvious, but I just thought I'd mention. They worked the top in Drops Belle, which is a cotton, viscose, and linen blend, and that seems lovely, and it's worked on 4mm needles. Sorry, I had to cut and interrupt the filming process. It's 5 hours later now. I realized I really had to rush to work. Anyway, you wouldn't even notice if I hadn't mentioned that now. Next one is the Smiling Honey top, also by Drops Design. In case you didn't know, Drops Design has a huge library of free patterns, knitting and crochet patterns, which, yeah, if you want to check them out, I will link everything down below. The Smiling Honey top is another lovely lace pattern top, which this time is worked from the bottom up, and the top itself is worked in 2 different panels. So you work front and then back panel, and you sew the sides together. Also, the lace pattern is smaller than on the other top. Yes, it is very important to mention that this is worked from the bottom up, because as I just explained earlier, you can easily detach and reattach the straps if you want to readjust the length of them, which is amazing when it's worked from the bottom up. So that's definitely an advantage. The pattern includes 6 different sizes, and it comes again with a little sketch with the measurements on it, and it's knitted on 2.5 and 3.5mm needles. The suggested yarn is Drops Saffron, which is a 100% cotton yarn. The next pattern is again lace. Who would have thought? But this time it's not a top, it's more like a t-shirt fit, and it also has a lace pattern all over it, which just looks really beautiful and feminine, and I love it. It is worked from the bottom up, but this time it's worked in the round and not in panels, which means you knit in the round until you reach the armholes, and then you separate front and back and work them separately. Needle sizes are again 2.5 and 3.5mm, and the recommended yarn is again Drops Saffron, which is a 100% cotton yarn. And of course, it comes with a sketch as well. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this. I feel like I keep saying the exact same thing for every pattern. So let's move on. The last pattern from Drops Design is the Coral Gable shirt. This one is giving more conservative vibes, I would say. Nevertheless, I still think it's a cute shirt, so that's why I included it. It includes 6 sizes, and it comes again with a little sketch with the measurements, and it's worked on 3 and 4mm needles. Right, I'm ending the video with a top that doesn't have a lace pattern on it. I know, crazy, but it has instead a scandalous cutout on the back. It is called the Cool Crop Top, and the pattern is by Paintbox Yarns. You can download the pattern for free on lovecrafts.com. The finished sizes of the garment are supposed to fit a bust circumference from 82 to 107 centimeters. The needles required are 3.25mm and 4mm needles. I think it's an overall really cute shirt. It has not only the huge cutout at the back, that's really cool. I also really like the details, such as the little cable detail at the bottom of the cutout, but also the overlapping sections. The ribbing section is a bit larger than you usually would see, and that just creates a really nice look, I feel like. Alright, that was everything I wanted to share with you today. Please let me know what you're planning on working on for the summer or during the summer. I would really love to know that. I would also really like to know, what is your opinion in general on knitting for the summertime? Do you think it's practical? Do you wear your knits during the summer? If you enjoyed the video, which I hope you did, please give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to this channel if you're interested in seeing more of this kind of content. Other than that, I will see you in the next video. Bye!